They say your name is ruined, that your reputation is crumbling. The world has begun to whisper your sins in dark corners, spreading rumors like wildfire. But here's the truth Machiavelli would whisper to you, if he could. Never rush to clear your name. Because the moment you try to prove your innocence, you admit the world has power over your image. And in power games, that is the first fatal mistake. In the modern world, we've been conditioned to panic when our name is dragged through the mud, to respond instantly, to issue statements, clarify intentions, apologize, deny. But Machiavelli's world was different and far more honest. He understood something most people today are too afraid to accept. Perception rules everything, and facts are just weak footnotes. When a rumor surfaces about you, it is not a fire to extinguish. It is fuel. Fuel to forge a stronger, darker, more untouchable identity. The Machiavellian mind does not see slander as a threat. It sees it as leverage. Because if people are already watching you, speaking about you, and fearing you, then you are already winning. You're on their minds. You're becoming part of their psychological landscape. Your enemies are doing your marketing for you. Let the rumor grow. Let it become legend. Why? Because silence breeds power. The man who doesn't explain becomes unpredictable, dangerous, mysterious, and mystery is power. The moment you deny a rumor, you shrink yourself. You tether yourself to the need for validation. But the man who lets the accusations swirl around him without blinking, he terrifies people. He becomes something more than human. He becomes myth. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince, "It is much safer to be feared than loved if one has to choose. A man who is feared cannot be ignored, but a man who pleads, explains, and begs for understanding, he becomes forgettable, weak, lost in the noise." Imagine this. You're accused of manipulation. Instead of fighting back, you lean into it. You don't confirm it. You don't deny it. You stay silent. Now people start to wonder, what is he really capable of? That question, that uncertainty, becomes your armor, because the unknown is always more terrifying than the truth. The moment you explain yourself, you remove all mystique. You become logical, measurable, safe. And power is never safe. Power is built on awe, on distance, on intimidation. The people at the top, the real players, rarely speak in defense of themselves. They let the silence work, because silence forces others to fill the gaps with fear, respect, or fantasy. In fact, those who rush to clear their names often dig deeper holes, because the need to defend is already a sign of weakness. If you're truly powerful, why would you care what small minds say? That's the real weapon. Indifference. Machiavelli would tell you, let the sheep talk. Lions don't correct gossip. This idea is not just theoretical. History proves it. Julius Caesar was rumored to be grasping for a crown long before he crossed the Rubicon. Did he deny it? No. He played coy. He let the speculation elevate him. The more they whispered, the more inevitable his rise seemed. Alexander the Great allowed myths to flourish about his divinity. He didn't stop the stories. He allowed them to inflate. He understood the psychological edge of legend. People fight a man, but they hesitate before confronting a myth. Napoleon embraced the title of tyrant. He didn't soften his image. He made himself appear larger than life, dangerous, unstoppable. He knew that being loved is fragile. Being feared, that's durable. Even in the modern world, look at powerful CEOs, leaders, icons. The ones who dominate the narrative aren't the ones issuing apologies every month. They're the ones who say nothing, who operate with precision, who let their results, not their emotions, speak. And if the rumor is completely false, even better. A baseless accusation, left unaddressed, becomes a test. It shows who is loyal, who is gullible, who reveals their hand too early. Use it to observe, to measure. Let your enemies reveal themselves through how they react to your silence. But this strategy requires one thing: control, emotional discipline. You cannot be desperate to be liked. You must be immune to the temptation of being seen as good, because the moment you chase purity, you become easy to manipulate. You become predictable, and predictable people never rise far. This doesn't mean you must always stay quiet. No, the moment may come to speak, but when you do, it should never be to defend. It should be to dominate. Speak when the truth no longer matters. Only your version of it. Speak when you're ready to rewrite the narrative entirely, not to beg for clarity, but to impose control. Let them think you're guilty. Let them believe you're dangerous. Because once they do, you've already won. Power is not about being right. It's about being above questioning. So next time your name is dragged through the mud, remember, that mud can become gold if you know how to shape it. Stand silent. Let the world talk. Let them wonder, because the more they guess, the more you grow. And when the smoke clears, they'll find themselves haunted, not by the truth, but by the legend you allowed to form. The rumor as a weapon. Control the story. Don't chase it. You've been accused, not just whispered about. Accused openly. They've taken your silence as guilt. Your name is swirling through circles like smoke in a closed room. Most people panic here. They chase the story. They beg people to listen. They issue explanations and set the record straight. But the powerful don't chase. They redirect. Machiavelli wouldn't tell you to clean the mess. He'd tell you to own the mess. Because a rumor is like a flame. Try to stamp it out and you feed it. Let it burn the old version of you down. And from the ashes, build a new image, one you control. You don't kill the narrative, you hijack it. This is the art of strategic misdirection. The public wants to know if you're guilty. You never answer that. Instead, you shift the attention. You release something bigger, something louder, a move, a quote, a mystery. While they're still chewing on the rumor, you drop something even more shocking. And just like that, you control the tempo. Never underestimate how short the public's attention span is. If you sit and beg to be understood, you're only feeding the story. But if you fascinate them, if you shock them, you silence them without ever saying, "I didn't do it." You rise above the noise by becoming more unpredictable than the noise itself. Take politicians. A scandal breaks. The weak scramble to apologize. The smart ones, they leak another story, even more controversial. Now the public shifts. Now it's not about what did he do, but what is he going to do next? They've flipped the script. The rumor becomes background noise, barely a footnote in a much bigger saga. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. In The Prince, he observed that perception could be shaped like clay, not by truth, but by spectacle. A ruler didn't need to be virtuous. He just needed to appear effective, powerful, decisive. The crowd doesn't care what's real. They care what's dramatic. So when accused, don't defend. Escalate. Imagine this. You're accused of being manipulative at work. Rather than issuing an emotional statement about your intentions, you suddenly drop a bold new strategy or deliver a result so impactful, so aggressive, that people forget the initial claim. You've rebranded yourself, not as innocent, but as essential. And essential people don't need to explain. They just keep winning. And here's a deeper truth Machiavelli would whisper. Morality is negotiable, but dominance is not. The world doesn't remove you because you were bad. It removes you when you're weak. So never chase morality when you can impose momentum. Once you're in motion, the rumors lag behind. No one cares about yesterday's scandal when today's move changes the board. Even in personal life, this strategy holds. Someone spreads lies about you. Instead of texting friends frantically trying to clarify the truth, you elevate. You show up sharper, colder, more focused. You become less available. You create distance. Suddenly, you're not reacting. You're ascending. The gossipers look petty. You look untouchable. But here's the caveat. This only works if you're willing to shed your old image. You can't try to be both innocent and intimidating. You must pick the higher position, not morally, but strategically, and that position is power, always power. Let people believe you're calculated. Let them think you're cold. You're not here to win hearts. You're here to win influence. And the strange thing, over time, the same people who whispered about you will begin to respect you. Maybe even fear you, because you didn't flinch, you didn't crumble, you evolved. This transformation, however, requires you to reframe the rumor. You must take the accusation and bend it into a signal of strength. They said you were ruthless? Good. Let that become your trademark. They said you were playing games? Perfect. You've mastered. At the board, every great persona in history was misunderstood first, until they weren't. Remember, the masses are not drawn to perfection. They're drawn to intensity, mystery. A person who doesn't flinch under fire. The ones who make history. They never pause to explain every rumor. They're too busy writing the next chapter. The more you act, the less people talk, the more they watch. Machiavelli would tell you this: the prince cannot be ruled by the emotions of the people. He must stir them, confuse them, seduce them, but never obey them. If the people demand you apologize, change course, or show weakness, do the opposite. Their outrage is proof you're gaining influence. Power doesn't come from being understood. It comes from being unforgettable. So next time a rumor corners you, ask yourself, what's the more powerful move? To be seen as innocent or to be seen as unstoppable? The answer is clear. Let the lie breathe. Let it roam. Then do something bolder, bigger, and louder. Something they can't look away from. And just like that, you're not the subject of a rumor anymore. You're the architect of your own legend. Because in the Machiavellian playbook, a rumor isn't something to run from. It's your first step toward domination. They've labeled you the villain, manipulative, arrogant, cold, good. Let them. Because once they cast you as the antagonist, you're free from the burden of trying to be liked. And in that freedom, you gain something far more valuable than approval. Influence. You see, Machiavelli never urged rulers to be good. He urged them to be effective. He understood that power doesn't reward the righteous. It rewards the feared, the strategic, the bold. If they want to call you a villain, then take the crown. Own the role. Don't deny it. Define it. This is the principle of image inversion. When someone tries to tarnish your name, they're giving you something precious. A frame. A story, a headline. The mistake most people make is they try to correct it. They plead with the world to see their true self. But the wise man realizes that story can be flipped. That perception can be redirected. They call you controlling, then become the master of your domain. They say you're dangerous. Let your presence command respect. Make the accusation your aura. Why? Because fear is a far more stable currency than love. The moment you stop running from the villain label, you start controlling how it's used. You turn what was meant to destroy you into a tool of dominance. People may not admire you, but they watch you. They hesitate around you. They measure their words, and that's power. Quiet, undeniable, and unchallenged. Now, this doesn't mean becoming reckless. It doesn't mean you start acting like a caricature of evil. Machiavelli was clear. Brutality without control is foolish. But if your reputation paints you as formidable, intimidating, even ruthless, use that edge. Use it in negotiations, in relationships, in rooms where weakness gets eaten alive. When someone fears you, they don't test you. And when they don't test you, you move faster, cleaner, and with less resistance. It's how power consolidates, not with a bang, but with silence. People simply learn to stay out of your way. Throughout history, the figures who endured were not the ones who tried to convince the world of their virtue. They were the ones who wore their darker traits like armor. Think of Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor. They called him manipulative, a political spider. He didn't correct them. He became the spider, and Germany was forged in his web. Think of Steve Jobs, arrogant, demanding, merciless with standards. The rumors were constant, and he let them grow. Why? Because those stories fed the legend, and legends don't need to be liked. They need to be remembered. Even in everyday life, this principle applies. Maybe at work, they say you're too aggressive, too ambitious. You don't argue. You deliver results so undeniable that the whispers stop sounding like insults and start sounding like predictions. That aggression becomes associated with achievement. That ambition becomes synonymous with victory. You must understand this. Most people live in fear of being misunderstood. They'd rather be accepted than exceptional. But power has no use for acceptance. It only respects effectiveness. If they already see you as dangerous, become so competent, so sharp, so decisive, that being dangerous becomes your strength. This is the Machiavellian pivot, turning criticism into credibility, turning slander into signal. Because once people associate your name with force, decisiveness, and danger, they no longer question you. They anticipate you. And that anticipation becomes your gravitational pull. But it takes discipline. You must not lash out. You must not try to correct every opinion. You must act with cold clarity. If they call you ruthless, act with precision. If they say you're manipulative, play the long game. If they think you're untouchable, make sure they're right. Eventually, the label they used to weaken you becomes a badge they fear. And when the room shifts, when people begin to speak softly in your presence, when they look twice before challenging you, you'll know you've succeeded. You've transformed perception into power. But here's the most important part. Never get emotional. This is the death of strategy. The moment you react with desperation, anger, or outrage, you confirm their accusations. You must always appear composed, controlled, even cold, because coldness in the face of fire is terrifying. Machiavelli wasn't just a political thinker. He was a master of human nature. He understood that fear governs behavior more predictably than love. When people love you, they may still betray you. When they fear you, they hesitate, and hesitation in the world of power is gold. So yes, they may call you the villain, and yes, you may lose a few sympathizers, but what you gain in return is authority. People may not clap when you enter the room, but they'll fall silent. And in that silence, you will speak louder than 1,000 apologies ever could. You didn't beg for their approval. You didn't scramble to clear your name. You let the fire rise. And when the ashes settled, you were still standing. Let the others chase innocence. Let them sleep peacefully in their mediocrity. You were never here to be understood. You were here to be feared and followed. A lie told once is a mistake. A lie repeated is a tool. But a lie that spreads, uncontested, unbothered, becomes something more powerful than truth. It becomes narrative. And once you're the center of a narrative, you're no longer just a person. You're an idea, a symbol, a force. That's where power lives. You were once the target. Your name dragged, misunderstood, twisted into something unrecognizable. And you thought, as many do, that the right response was as honesty, transparency, explanation. But honesty does not survive in power games. Control does. That's the final lesson Machiavelli would leave you with. Stop defending your image and start weaponizing it. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be misunderstood on purpose. Because once people can't pin you down, they can't predict you. And once they can't predict you, they fear you. This is how you go from being hunted to becoming the hunter, not by fighting every fire, but by using their heat to forge your next move. Every rumor is an indicator. Someone's watching, someone's threatened. That's not shame, that's a signal. But signals mean nothing if you react emotionally. Power dies the second you make it personal. They want you to panic. They want you to show your desperation to be liked, to be believed. That's the trap. The moment you play innocent, they've already framed you as guilty. The frame is the weapon, and your only move is to step outside it entirely. This means controlling your tempo. When they shout, you stay silent. When they whisper, you act. You don't give them rhythm. You become unpredictable. And unpredictability forces people to freeze. In that pause, you move, you lead. There's a reason Machiavelli wrote that a wise prince must learn how not to be good, because goodness, when expected, is leverage for others. When they believe you must be perceived as moral, they can control you with accusation. But when you let go of that need, when you become comfortable being seen as dangerous, they lose that grip. You can't be manipulated by shame if you've already made peace with being misunderstood. This doesn't mean you destroy your image. It means you reshape it, deliberately, coldly. You let the false image form, then inject enough truth to make it useful. You bend the perception toward power, toward influence, toward authority. That's the true Machiavellian move. Not denial, not retreat, but direction. You don't stop the story. You change the ending. And yes, there will be losses. People who don't understand the transformation. People who still think clarity is virtue. Let them go. Power is not built on popularity. It's built on distance, precision, calculated presence. At this stage, you're no longer clearing your name. You're no longer playing defense. You're redefining your role. When someone lies about you now, you don't panic. You listen. Because now, the lie reveals their strategy. It shows their weakness. You're seeing in real time who believes it, who spreads it, who watches in silence. You're mapping the battlefield, not reacting to it. And the more composed you remain, the more control you gain. You start to realize something deeply unsettling to others. That rumors cannot harm you without your cooperation. They only work when you show weakness, when you flinch, when you try to prove you're innocent. But you've outgrown that. You've learned to treat perception as clay. You sculpt it, carefully, quietly, with a long-term vision. You use rumors not just as distractions, but as tests. Each one reveals a little more about the people around you, their loyalties, their fears, their desperation to see you fail. And when you finally speak, not to defend, but to declare, to move, to act, it's thunder. They realize too late that while they were busy spinning lies, you were spinning a strategy, and now they're part of it. That's the final evolution. From tar, get to tactician. From accused to architect. You own your name again, not by polishing it, but by arming it. You didn't run from the darkness. You used it. You made the silence your weapon. You turned slander into strategy. And now you don't explain. You command. And if you've followed this far, if you've recognized that this path isn't just theory but necessity, then you've already begun the shift, the Machiavellian shift. You're not here for approval. You're here for advantage. Every person who thinks like this, who sees through the illusion of reputation, who plays the long game in silence, strengthens the ranks of minds that actually shape the world. If that's you, you're in the right place. This channel is where we sharpen those minds, where we expose the tactics, decode the manipulation, and turn weakness into weapons. You'll want to stay in this arena. There's more coming, more truth they won't teach, more tools they hope you never pick up. And if this has given you even one new way to see your position, one moment of clarity in a fog of lies, then keep going. Watch another. Learn more, because the world isn't kind to those who wait to be understood. It only rewards those bold enough to move, while others are still talking. The rumor didn't end you, it crowned you.